Hi, this is Deb Wenger. This week we're taking a look at the ways to create great stories through the art of interviewing. So in order to conduct an interview, obviously you have to ask questions. And the right questions can lead to amazing interviews that provide excellent sound bites or quotes for your stories. So all interview questions can basically be broken down into two essential types. The first type is the objective question. So with an objective question, you tend to get facts and figures kind of responses. So you might ask someone, how many people were hurt in the accident? When was the last time you had a sellout crowd? You want specific details that will help flesh out the important elements of your story. Now, when you ask a facts and figures question, you expect to get a response that's very factual, right? And you would expect that it's not influenced by emotions or personal prejudices. But the reality of it is that you sometimes can ask an objective question but get a subjective response. So, for example, let's say you're covering a protest, and one of the people that you talk to is an organizer of the protest against higher tuition prices on campuses around the country. And so you might ask them, how many people have taken part in this protest today? And even if they don't mean to, part of their response is going to be influenced by the fact that they want their protest to seem like a big deal. So you might get a response that's a little bit inflated, that's not entirely accurate. And so that's why no matter what type of question you ask, you can't take whatever you hear from the person you interview as gospel. You have to find a way to verify that. Find a second person to give you an estimate of how many people were there. Maybe find someone more objective, like a police officer who was there to control the crowds. So you want to make sure that whatever types of questions that you're asking, that you don't take the responses as hard and fast facts until you've checked them out and verified them in another way. Now, that doesn't mean that objective questions aren't valuable. Even though they may not get you the best quotes or the best sound bites, they're still very important as a way for you to track down the details that make your story more newsworthy. So if you ask that question, when's the last time you had a sellout crowd? And the answer is 10 years ago. Well, there's a perfect hook for your story. There's something that helps make that story newsworthy because it's unique. It hasn't happened for more than 10 years. That makes whatever event it is a special newsworthy event. The second type of question type is subjective. So subjective questions tend to provide responses that give you some emotion or personal observation or expert opinion. And so because of that, these should provide the best sound bites and quotes for your story. So you might ask somebody about, let's say, if you're going to try to get some expert opinion, you might talk to somebody who's an expert on Ebola and find out from them just how dangerous exactly is Ebola to the average person. So their expert opinion is likely to make an important soundbite for your story or an important quote. If you run into somebody right after they've won a basketball game, let's say, and they sunk the winning shot, their personal observation about how that felt when that basket went through the hoop and they won the game, that's going to be a compelling soundbite or quote. So subjective questions tend to get us these kinds of responses that make for very colorful and descriptive parts of your story. So some examples of subjective questions. What was going through your mind when you sunk that winning shot? You know, you might get a great response about how I knew how important this game was to the coach and I so wanted to help win it for him. Well, that's going to make a great quote. Let's say that you talk to one of those protesters who's trying to keep tuition down at college campuses. You might say, why is this so important to you? You could get a great response about how, you know, he's been in debt for the last 10 years because of student loans that were too much of a burden. Sometimes when you're talking to an official or an expert, like you will be for your first interview assignment, you have to kind of force them to give you emotion or expert opinion. So sometimes you have to make it personal for them. So let's say you're interviewing a school superintendent about a new school uniform policy. So you might say to him, what would you tell your child about the reason why they can't wear their favorite outfit to school anymore? So put it on a personal level to try to get more emotion from that soundbite. You might try asking someone what they think about a recent development. So what do you think about the new tax hike? It's a very open-ended question, but it's likely to get a very personal response. Another one, how is this going to affect you? How is this going to affect your family? You get the idea. These types of questions are the types of questions that will get you better sound bites and quotes. So for the most part, subjective questions are open-ended questions, or questions that can't be answered with a yes or no. So again, they tend to lead you to the best sound bites or the best quotes for your news stories. Now, your assignment for your first interview is to develop 2 objective questions and 3 subjective questions for the story that you're going to do in this class. You're going to post 2 discussions on Blackboard along with a 1 to 2 sentence description of your story. So you need to know what the story is that you're going to do, who the expert is that you're going to interview, and you have to come up with 2 objective questions and 3 subjective questions to ask this expert. As a second part of this assignment, you need to view your classmates' questions and offer at least 1 more objective and 1 more subjective question for one of your classmates to ask. So you just have to find one of your classmates' stories that's interesting to you, and you have to come up with a new objective and a new subjective question for them to ask their interview subject based on the information provided. So you don't have to do it for everyone in the class, just for one other classmate. You should check each assignment under discussions for specific due dates. And if you have any questions, of course, you can always reach out to me via email or post to the online forum for frequently asked questions.